Hey guys, hi, my name is Neha, you know me, and you also know Neena Dutta. Neena Dutta, she's a principal at Dutta Law firm. Neena, thank you so much for joining me today. It's such a pleasure to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, there's just so much going on with immigration. I'm sure it's keeping you on your toes. It's keeping me on my toes, definitely.
There is never a dull day. When people say that immigration is just forms and it's, oh, you must have an easy job. No, that's not, that
That's
is
not
not how it's been.
Yeah, and yesterday, just when we were not even done celebrating the the International Student Victory, yesterday there was a change that was announced in policy. The USCIS has come up with a policy change, which says that they're going to use their discretion in basically, giving you an EAD, right?
Yeah, in adjudications, yes. So cast your mind back to, well, before this administration, there was very clear guidelines on 90 days. You could request an expedite. It was very clear when you could expect your EAD, what kind of things you had to submit. And we've gone from a very clear 90 days or less to, well, we'll see. There's no time constraint. There's, you have to jump through all these extra hoops simply to get work authorization that when your application is submitted, you are owed anyway.
Right. So you file for the EAD, you pay the fees, and now it's on top of, the officer's discretion. Once it's denied, you cannot even appeal back.
Exactly. And, there's many different ways you can get the EAD. Very common is if you came here as an F1 student. After that, it's called optional practical training, OPT. OPT gives you an EAD. But also if you're the spouse of an L2, if you're an L2, if you're the spouse of an L1, the H4 EADs also. Or if you're in the process of applying for a green card, with the I-485, you can get an EAD.
Right.
In all of these scenarios, it's of course, immigration is a benefit. It's not a right.
Right.
However, in 1997, when they passed the I-9 and IRA rules, where it's very strict enforcement of unauthorized work, so really, everybody who is applying for an EAD is trying to follow the rules. They just want to get, make sure that they are compliant with work authorization.
Yeah. So now it's going to affect the F1 EADs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to affect the H4 EAD. It's also going to affect the green card EAD, right?
Yes.
So all of us are now in limbo. We already were, we already know. I'm going to share my screen real quick, Neena, and we'll go a little in detail over this. Okay, so here we go.
And there's also the asylum folks as well. So there's a few different ways that people get EADs. So, to the sort of, to the average immigration lawyer, I'll tell you, this doesn't necessarily tell us anything we didn't know. Discretion is always exercised by an officer adjudicating. This kind of gives us notice that they're telling us, out loud that they are going to exercise their discretion. What is a real concern is a couple of things. One, USCIS are furloughing many employees. So there's already a slowing down of adjudications. Next, there has been, we're not paranoid. You're not paranoid when you see that, things are taking a sort of nosedive. So there's a lot, there are people that, we refer to as legacy INS. So that's, the folks who have been doing this for many, many years. there's also the people who have become sort of within USCIS,
Right.
kind of activists for, really for trying to stop people coming to the US,
Right.
which is very much, I think, influenced by Stephen Miller, by this administration.
Yeah.
And it's a real concern. So, whenever people say the presidential elections don't matter, I mean, I think we have seen ample evidence that it does. People are really empowered to make these terrible, discretionary choices.
Right.
And so it's something that we have to be mindful of going forward. But with the US economy in the direction it is, what a waste of talent. I mean, truly, other countries are grasping to get this type of wonderful, rich talent that is trying to come to the US.
Right.
And they're really kicking the face of these inventive, interesting, productive people.
Right. Now, so USCIS is furloughing a lot of people, a lot of its employees.
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, they have 20,000 employees, so that's 2/3 are being furloughed.
Yeah, and on top of it, it does not have the capabilities to print in-house. They had a third-party vendor that they were using to print all the EADs. They do not. And with this now, this policy change that came by yesterday, this is going to just put all of us, everybody who has an EAD, everybody who has a work authorization, completely off the tracks. What are we going to do?
Right. Well, one of the things that certainly, a lot of the immigration lawyers are looking to do is to make sure that anyone who has a claim, that we can sue on their behalf. That's going to be, litigation, unfortunately, is going to be the one effective tool, but also raising awareness. During the last debates, in 2016, people talked about legal immigration. They talked about being able to come to the US and people, coming the right way. And if you are barring people from that, it's a real concern.
Yeah. Now, I get that part. But Neena, you know what? I'm really concerned right now is we know that litigation has been the way in the past year or so. Like people who do not get their EAD, they've been litigating per case basis, and it seems to magically appear. The EAD seems to magically appear the minute you litigate, right? But not everybody has the resources to litigate. So what happens to people? So do you have any piece of advice for people who are now in for renewals or applying for their H4 EADs or other forms of EADs? Do you have any guidance for them?
Yeah, so actually you raise a really good point. People are concerned about the cost of litigating. So there's two important things to remember. One is, you're not litigating against USCIS directly. And what I mean by that is a lot of people think, oh, if I sue, they're going to deny all my future cases. That's actually not the case because you're not, you file federally. So, the future adjudications are not in question. But the other thing is, when you go down that route, there's something called EJA fees. And so while there may be some initial costs, there's actually, the government is required to pay the fees. If they're found, if they lose, they're required to pay the fees. So, for anyone who is considering that or worried about the cost, you also can go to, there's various organizations that are looking for plaintiffs. And there's various larger law firms as well who are partnering with nonprofits who, need great plaintiffs if that's, if they have a good case.
Yeah, but it's just, I think it puts the onus on the immigrant themselves. to
It does.
fight for their work authorization. I mean, something that is rightfully theirs, something that is legally, you know, theirs. It's. I feel it's just so much of an additional headache for an
Everything.
Yeah.
And that is the, you know, that is the directive of this particular administration. They want to make it so difficult that people leave. And,
Yeah.
you know, my encouragement or my sort of message is, don't let them get you down. Like, we have to keep fighting because this is unfair, and this is not the direction that the country should go in.
Absolutely. Now, you know, on June 22nd, there was a presidential proclamation that has kind of banned. It's kind of like everything is at a freeze right now, right?
Yeah.
And it caught people off guard. You know, some of them were in India and they got stuck because of the lockdown, because of the whole pandemic situation. Right now, we're fearing family separation because we don't know how long this is going to go. You know, the administration is saying it's going to go on for 6 months until December, maybe, but who knows? It could go on longer depending on how the economy recovers.
And the election in November. I mean, that's going to have an effect.
Yes, right. So do you have any advice for them if a spouse is stuck in India and the consulate's open, which they will? You know, there's some news trickling in that they might be opening very soon. If the consulate's open, can a spouse attend an interview?
So the consulates, the individual consulates, are going to give us guidance on that. Okay. You know, as they did, the Department of State did come out with guidance right as the guidance was, we have no guidance. Because there was a few things, you know, for example, someone who had like a B stamp in their passport, you know, it's a different type of visa, but people were wondering, can I enter in on the B and then do a change of status?
Yeah.
They have subsequently clarified, because, you know, this was very poorly written. But, you know, aside from that, it shouldn't have been, you know, the June 22nd one shouldn't have been such a shock to people. We knew it was coming.
Right.
The April proclamation did give us a hint that it's coming. So something else to keep in mind with the June proclamation is there was a little warning shot about labor certs. So labor certifications, EB2 and 3 is part, you know, that's a perm. When someone starts an employment-based green card, it's the first step. We have to be very careful, you know, because they did allude to making that a more difficult process. So, you know, just like in April, they said travel might be, well, they didn't refer to travel, but they talked about
the proclamation coming by for skilled immigrants.
So the next sort of warning shot, I think, is labor certs, but we'll see. Now, to answer your question, can people come? So we'll see if you know, the consulates will even entertain folks, because I mean, they're going to be sitting there doing nothing. Well, not nothing, but you know.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of backlog.
If nothing is processed until, you know, December 31st. On the flip side, you know, we do think that litigation may prevail in this case, because it is essentially a travel ban. It does separate families. While there isn't anything productive or positive that people can do as far as the consular interviews, something I encourage highly is let you know, the H-1B or whoever is here who is separated, let their employer know to let their congressperson know, because, you know, the other side is very loud and will call their members of Congress and Senate, senators frequently. And I feel like, especially because we have so many non-citizens, people get very hesitant to raise any issues. But, you know, even if you are not able to vote, you know, you're still a tax-paying resident of that area. And I have found that members of Congress to be very open to, you know, hearing. So as residents in their district, you know, this is something they need to know is happening.
Right. I can talk from personal experience. It definitely works. Definitely. They're always ready to help you and listen. You know, you're a constituent of that particular area, so they got to listen to you. It's completely your right to do so. So that's what it is. Neena, thank you so much for your time. I really, really do appreciate it. You know, it's a busy afternoon, but thank you so much for taking this time and talking to me. I'm just hopeful that something good will come out of this. I don't know what just yet, but you know, you always have to keep that hope on, right? And yeah.
I think, you know, if I had a message for your audience, it's keep telling your stories, tell your neighbors, you know, because you'd be amazed how many Americans like, but you're a nice guy. I can't believe that's happening to you. Keep telling your story. Tell as many people as possible, because people don't realize how unfair and unjust this is, you know, and they're like, but I love that guy. He's my neighbor, you know. Let them know that you're having, you know, that this is a difficult time. Because the other fallacy that I see floating around is people always talk about H-1B depressing wages and
taking away American
jobs. Right. And the fact is, like, people are skilled. While there may be some bad actors, you know, certain companies that are not following the rules, that is not the rule of thumb. And the more positive stories that we can share on listservs, on blogs, on you know, social media, the better it will be, and the more sort of positive messages we can get out there.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think speak up. That's my takeaway. I'm not gonna shut up. I'm gonna continue to speak up. You know, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.